Merci Gérard pour cette introduction sympathique. For the following of the debate, I will try to have that conversation with Ken in English. Just a few words, because once we organized and prepared that discussion, the idea was to build it on two parts, because obviously Ken, as Gérard said, that the first time that he is coming officially, professionally in Europe, in France, and we said, okay, once I was looking for what he did in the past, I was amazed, because he was, that the first time, that's the third time that he is creating and managing a firm with Fortinet. The fact is, he created Fortinet in 2000, 13 years ago, and but before, it was just when he was student in Stanford University. He created SIS, Stanford Info Systems. We are in 1993. And later, he created a firm which is well known in our business name, Netscreen. And Netscreen, you sold Netscreen in 2004 for something as $4 billion to Juniper. That's the very nice story, because it was created in a garage in Palo Alto, California. So it's the good, the real, true, and efficient story concerning the business of security. And then after that, you decided to say, okay, we can improve, we can offer something different, and then you created Fortinet. Fortinet, that's now 2,030 people, something like that. Yep. That's $500 million in turnover last year. That's quite a young but strong and with a high potential of development. So we said, okay, when you create a company, that's something that's someone that has to propose a service, propose a product that didn't exist before. And then it means that you took the time to say, okay, what will be the need for the community in the next years? So that's why we thought it was important to discuss with Ken, because say, okay, he's able to have an idea of what will be the background, what will be the need of the business in few years. So it's not only by selling a product just for next term, it's to have a kind of vision. It's always difficult to use that term, because it's kind of like a scientist. It's a conviction about what will be the business in the next year. So we decided to say, okay, to know more about what he did and his conviction and his conception of that activity. And after that, try to say, okay, what is the business? What are the threats? What are the consequences on the organizations, on the firms, on the administrations, which can use and be the users and consumers of their product? Just how did you, because you are, and just to finish the presentation, saying you are graduated from Stanford, but you are still graduated from Tsinghua University in China, which is a very well-known and university. So you are based on these 2 feet, on the American one and one of the best, and in China with the Asian training at the Tsinghua University. Yeah. And you are an engineer. And what make you going to the statutes of being an entrepreneur? Because you were able to work on a more important company. How did you say, I am an engineer, but I need to become an entrepreneur? Ken?
Wow, it's a very long question and a lot of
But it's very short. It wasn't.
Okay, I see what I can remember. I think I was fortunately get involved in the computer in my early age, and so I was 50 now. So it's when I was 10, I started getting involved in some computer because my parents are professor in the best engineering school back there in China. And then you can see that kind, the computer is still more punch card, all the things, but it's already starting to get pretty interesting there. And then probably like 30 years ago, that's where the PC really since starting, and I was also more early involved in that part. And then all my major, all study back in Tsinghua, back in Stanford, is all in the computer networking area. And all the three companies also in the same space, network security. So even I start three companies, but I have to say it's pretty much all play in the same area, which also I like a lot. And so that's where kind of interesting. I feel when I was young, my parents' dream really, you need to later be a professor, teaching like they're doing there. So I have no idea, no interest how to start a company, entrepreneur. It's all kind of changed in the Stanford environment, because that's the university I feel still quite a different culture compared to some other university, more traditional university. Basically, especially in the engineering school, there's so many companies all starting from there, from like early days like HP, and then Cisco there, and Yahoo, Google, all the other, a lot of companies all starting from the school. Basically, in there, actually, if you want to prove you're smart, it's not by how good you are on the score there, it's really how you can create something different and even start your own company. So in Stanford, I was I did not quite finish. Supposed to get a PhD, but I did not quite finish. And because I have enough credit that later they give me the master, which I already have. So that's where it's all starting in the beginning when I was a student there, trying to get my PhD is really helping a lot of friends, a lot of other, because I think it's 20 years ago, internet still relatively new, even in Silicon Valley. So that time still no web. There's all like Telenet, FTP, email starting to get popular there. So it's really helping a lot of friends set up the internet connection. And also there's no quite a kind of firewall. It's more like a different way you can package OS, package things together, try to secure some connection, control some connection. So it's more helping a lot of friends try to set up all this internet connection. And once you get like 30, 40 internet connection set up, and also from time to time they all run into trouble, because that time it's really a lot of connection, also the die-up, or the X.25, and all the even T1 not quite popular yet. So that's where kind of I started getting into the way to help them regularly. And then I started kind of, because that time I was student, so don't have much, because the only thing student can get some income, do the TA, do the RA, which not a lot. But then if a lot of company, they need my help, so I started charging some monthly fee. Once you get like a 30, 40 company, you can get some monthly fee, $few $100 per month per company. It's pretty decent income. And so that's how the thing started. And then later I found out if I have to do the script, do the program for every company, too much trouble. I started program something that can easily go there, install, do some configuration change. So that's where my first company, 20 years ago, is really a software firewall. So that's how things started. And but I have to say, even I was in the very early day involved in network security. I think Checkpoint also started in '93, and the other company called Network Translation, later they sold to Cisco, become the Pixbox, also started at the same time. So that's where the whole space started pretty much take off that time. But I have to say my first company, I doing it more in sometimes study, sometimes do some consulting. I have nice income, more enjoy life, not quite serious about whether raise the money or so I enjoyed the life for 4 years and bought a house close to Stanford, got married, had the kids. But then starting to get more serious. Really, I just try to do all this consulting job all the time, or maybe I can try to some other company, try to more startup, raise the money, VC. But also I see the problem of my first company because difficult to scale. So once we have the software, sometimes one thing is really different company, they need some different firewall, different configuration. The other part is really the speed, the performance starting to become an issue. So that's we see a lot of times really the software not stable enough and also not fast enough. So that's the reason I create somehow Netscreen, because also lucky enough, when I studied in the Stanford, I half time studied in the electrical engineer, half time in the computer science. So I know the chip design, also know the networking security. So that's created Netscreen, which we use in combine the hardware and the software together to making the security much faster.
Just when you decide to create a company, because most of the time when the people are doing so, that because they have the conviction that there is no equivalent of what they have in mind on the market. And how do you have that conviction to say, okay, what I will propose, there is no equivalent and it will be successful because there is nothing like that on the market?
I think for me, to especially start a company in US, I don't think I have a lot of advantage on some sales marketing side. So I have to create a lot of technical advantage there in order to overcome some other part. So that's where when I create a Netscreen, so even they need a much more engineering work, design the chip, and also kind of, but once you have that advantage, then you can more easily kind of overcome some other shortcomings we have that time. That's where, for me, myself, always kind of more passionate about how to create something different and also more long-term. Because invest into hardware, invest into the chip compared to do the things in software is quite a big difference on the investment. Because chip would usually take about 3 years to design and also sometimes tens of $100 million to do it. But on the other side, once you have that one, the performance will be 10 to 100 times faster than the software can do. And then you also can free up the CPU, run some new function faster. So that's all the Netscreen, the Fortinet, we have this architecture we feel is really, even it's take more engineering effort to design the platform, but once you have it, advantage huge compared to easy, quick software solution. And also in software program, it's the same thing. Like if somehow you know the software program, you can program in Java, it's very quick, the script, but then you probably suffer the performance. And then you can program in the C level, or you can go to the assembly or the chip level. So each level you go move down, you improve efficiency by 10x. But on the other side, you also need to put a 10x more effort to do it. So that's where we feel what's the trade-off between like more invest into the long term or try to have something quick so that's where the combination of both using the chip and also using the software, the right platform, the latest CPU, that's what Fortinet doing today. I feel it's the best choice because I tried the software only in the first company. It's quick, easy, can some function, but then the issue is more on the performance, reliability. And then the Netscreen is more hardware only because we're using the ASIC for firewall VPN, but CPU is the MIP CPU, so slow compared to Intel CPU. Now we have the best combination, the faster CPU plus the faster chip. So that's a much better fit into this space and also different than other competitors. That's I feel kind of pretty happy about the platform.
And this is how you create Fortinet to deliver that service now?
Yeah, I think that's where after I kind of not too successful in the first two companies, even end up result is all made some money from the family, it's all fine. But I still feel I cannot go further in that platform. Whether software only or hardware only. Need to have the right combination. So that's the platform can give you more long-term advantage. That's where this company, we've been 13 years. So I feel will be other 5 to 10 years, we're still way ahead of other competitor. So that's why I feel pretty comfortable because I tried both way and found the limitation of the software only, the hardware only. And now I have both advantage. I feel probably feel more comfortable that way.
According to you, what make Fortinet different from Netscreen that you did? You said few words. Different compared to the rest of the market.
I think first I feel the whole network security, IT security is starting growing very, very fast. Because today on the whole internet environment, the internet when they created 40 years ago, that's I was involved in early day. They create quite equal. There's all flat. So they're more interested in connections together. They're not interested in how to control it. So everything is all the same level of control. There's no internet itself architecture don't have how much control can do it. So that's where the gateway in the middle, you have to be able to control certain way. Just like when I fly in yesterday, take 20 hours all the way, the airport, the visa, passport, all the things. So that's where people travel, you have a certain control, you have a border. And the same thing for cargo. But when you travel on the internet, there's no control. So the only thing you can control is really the gateway, right? So that's where the gateway is starting to get more popular because all the security concern, all the things. But the issue on the gateway also you need to take care of the traffic, make sure it's not become the bottleneck, and same time take care of all the new application. And at the same time also need to move to the content side, to the application side. So that's making the gateway starting design more and more difficult. That's why I feel the way you can differentiate really, because if you only have some software, which I feel they are very limited, being running on certain OS, on certain PC or server architecture, which not quite fit well into the network side. Because network side, if you look at the router switching, it's a more layer 2 connection, so they're more dedicated, much faster. But the PC server architecture, they're more designed to be the host computing architecture, not quite in the processing, in the network gateway processing architecture. So that's the part, because so far the network security space, probably about $10, $15 billion space, still relatively not that large, even grow pretty fast. That's where so far the bigger company not quite invest into design or architect a special like a chip or architecture just fit into this space yet. So we are pretty much the first company try to invest into not only software but also hardware chip level. So that's kind of differentiated than some other company, which their software always can function much faster. But on the other side, because they have to use existing OS, they have to use in the PC server architecture, so also they have a lot of limitation, especially when you move to the multi-function, when you move to some other high-speed environment, which we feel we can really differentiate a lot from that angle.
I said few words concerning figures about Fortinet. Said $500 million turnover, 2030, 300 to 2,300 people. How do you see the future of the company? How do you see the tomorrow?
We are now number 3 worldwide on the network security, just past Juniper and behind the Cisco and Checkpoint. But I feel the advantage we have on the platform and the target, I think in the next few years, we want to be the number 1. Because we feel from the product technology, the team, and also the partner, the customer, we really set to achieve that target. And on the other side...
Do you have a period of time in mind?
A public company, we probably cannot say that. I think from the way we're growing, I think it's probably in a few years we feel have a very good chance because so far the two companies bigger than we are, they grow much slower, and at the same time the way we want to keep invest, the way we try to expand the market share, we feel pretty comfortable in a few years we have a very good chance. And because whether I think it's because once the company, some bigger company, they have a more slow on the innovation, and because security is a very dynamic space, you need to keep up the innovation. But on the other side, you also need to have the right platform, the right architecture, and and also the infrastructure to make sure you follow the change and keep up innovation. At the same time, also take care of the traditional function. Like security kind of interesting, the old function, the old application never goes away. but then you keep adding a new function. So I feel there's a three trend in the internet security, which even different competitor, we all say, hey, maybe what's the future, but nobody disagree about this three trend. First is really the network speed. They still double every 2 years. So now you have the 40 gig, the 100 gig, then the 400 gig standard, terabit standard all come out already. So that's where the Moore's law still applied. They double the speed every 2 years. Second, you have a more device connected, not only the computer, the phone, the PC, all the other things, but also other appliances all connected, also kind of more application also in the internet. So that if you want to do certain way to control, because so far, people more want to do the connection, how fast they can connect, more like you build a freeway, do all the things like people come to here, and you want to be as fast as possible come over here. And not quite have the capability to control a lot of things on the internet yet. Eventually, they do need, once they say, oh, I have enough connection, now I need to see how I can have a little bit more managed, more control, then you need to have the gateway to do the job. And the third one also, you need to move to the higher layer. So the traditional way, like a firewall, they try to control the connection, like where the traffic comes from, is no longer enough. So just like today, you go to the airport, they not only see where you come from, see where you go to, you also need to go to the screen, see, hey, whether there's certain things in whatever in your luggage, or also go to all the screen, all the crazy things, especially in US. And you need to see the content inside, what's inside the traffic. That's where the network device not designed to do that job, because they're still in the layer 2, layer 3. So far, they all about connection, everything want to connect, and they're nothing in the internet architecture try to create a border. Because once you have the border, then you have the passport, you have the government, you have all these things, crazy things all come up. I think sooner or later, I say maybe there's a certain way on the internet, they may create a border, they may create some other things, right? So I'm not favor that direction, but I think sooner or later, I think there's certain things will happen in the internet space.
When you created Fortinet in year 2000, you had a specific vision of the IT security. Do you consider that vision has evolved in certain years? And if yes, how?
I think when I created Fortinet, I feel I try to address two things. One is really definitely try to move the security function to the higher layer. Not only the traditional connection layer, firewall, VPN, but also move to the content, antivirus, or intrusion, or the other things. And then also address the same thing in Netscreen, like how to increase the speed, because network speed keeping double every 2 years. I see security today starting to get more complicated. And a lot of time, it's even difficult for certain enterprise IT people to manage. So the service provider and certain carrier starting also play some role to provide certain service, like whether your mobile smartphone device or certain other things. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to manage by the person or by all these kind of things. So you need to have a more clean infrastructure to do the job. Like here, it's very safe, very clean, but it's not quite on the internet. Internet, you still, everything's all kind of so many garbage, so you still need to do some job to clean the environment. So that's what make the environment more safe. That's what make the enterprise or the end user less the burden to really take care of a lot of other janitors' job or the other things. Because I have to say, today's environment on the internet is much more complicated than 10, 13 years ago. Just have certain endpoint software is no longer enough. You definitely need to have a way to working with the service provider and make sure that the clean pipe, the big environment is so you need to have a multiple layers sometimes, even multiple layer to try to clean the things.
I noticed a sentence that you said a few years ago. You said the internet has changed the way security should be approached. And do you think it's the structure of the internet or the way it's used that has driven the necessary evolution of IT security? What was the reason?
I don't think the internet in the last 40 years has changed much from architecture level. you can see still run the TCP/IP, right? So that's the protocol been there 40 years, and because they are very fault tolerant and also very easy to scale up, and even I know they talk about for 10, 15 years the IPv6, and it's still not quite happened, right? So so that's where now they start to have discussion whether internet should have the board. I feel that will take at least 10 to 20 years to see some meaningful way in the architecture. Where I think it's in the next 10, 20 years, internet is still more about connection, connect more device, get faster speed, more like you build a freeway, and people willing to pay for that, right? You're willing to pay extra fee to get a faster freeway to access all the things. That's the same thing on internet. So that's where, but in certain business environment, in certain certain personal usage, so that's the way you need to have the gateway device to create your own border, try to do a little bit more control. Because pretty much on the internet architecture side, it's pretty much no control right now. And even there's no law, and also, I think once you have a border, you have law, then the government involved. I'm not sure it's a good thing or bad thing, but it's right now, I have to say, in the internet, there's no government. But that's where eventually, once people say, hey, I have enough connection, now I need to have a way to better manage or have better control, or all these kind of things, then maybe the time the internet architecture is starting to get a change a little bit. But right now, I have to say, people still more favor have more connection, connect more device, than just try to add some other control. It's all kind of the business side and some other certain user, they want to have both the control and the connection. I feel the internet architecture will not change much in the next 10 years.
You started to talk about the conception of security. Do you consider that basically we can divide that security world in two categories, like endpoint security and network security? And if so, do you see an increasing convergence between both?
The endpoint security, the market kind of starting changing, also kind of shrinking. I think in the last 5 to 10 years, you see the network security growing much faster than endpoint security. So the business actually more towards the network side. I think it's all because a lot of issue, because today's device is more connected than before. In the past, if you're not quite connected, like viruses all come from, in early days, all the floppy drive, some other things that get passed to you, you get infected, all these kind of things. But nowadays, it's not quite from all the USB, the other things really kind of more come from, 99% come from all the network side. So that's where I think both market will be there, but I personally feel the network security grow much faster than the endpoint security. First, endpoint security, you put too much burden on the individual user. It's more difficult to manage. And second, a lot of device, like whether the smartphone or some other appliance they use at home, they don't quite have the computing power or standard OS or some other things really to really implement the endpoint security. So that's where you need to have the clean environment. Like in here, you come to Monte Carlo, not like in US, probably US have more gun than people there. People is sometimes crazy there. But it's here you have a clean, safe environment. Then you don't have to have personal protection, like everybody carries some gun in their trunk or all these kind of things. Right? So that's where the network give you much better, safe environment, and also more efficient to protect a lot of things, device behind.
That's why the Assises are in Monaco, because it's a safe place. What type of vendor will be better positioned for taking advantage of that evolution of the IT security? More network security vendors or security of software providers?
I think people need definitely more helping on the, putting it this way, first, there's still a lot of network security companies or software company. So I feel they will have a little bit more difficult time to keep up the network speed change. And on the other side, I feel some of the networking company or infrastructure company carrier, also they call the MSP, the Managed Security Service Provider. They have very good position to really helping customer and provide additional service. Because now customer, they're willing to pay the additional fee to make sure they have a better connection, they have a more safe, more clean pipe. But one thing I feel in the enterprise side, they also need to equip themselves, have the capability to address the issue when there's a need. Like sometimes they may just enable the firewall function. Just like you come to Monte Carlo, there's like 2-3 freeway. You just, hey, that's the place maybe just monitor whose speed, who whatever, what kind of truck come in, or make sure the tank cannot come in. But when the case there's some issue in here, like a robbery or whatever happened, they will be able to stop the traffic, to screen every people there, see what's inside their car, all this kind of thing. So the enterprise, they need to have that capability in the case there's something happen. So their device, their gateway, need to have the capability to do even deeper kind of screening or checking. Even sometimes they may slow down the network. So that's where they need to prepare for anything happening, instead of just the traditional managed connection.
Here in Monaco, we are talking about threats concerning IT, cybersecurity. Do you think that we can really anticipate the next IT threats? Or is there a kind of logic in security? The only approach will be reactive, a reactive standpoint. Once the attacks techniques are known, we are able to repair or to adapt our organization to the attacks discovered.
I say most of the time we can predict in quite some degree, because we also, like when I started Fortinet, you can see one big organization different than other companies. Really, we do have all they call the FortiGuard, the threat management team. So that's the people, their job 24/7, just look at the internet, what's happening on the intrusion, on the virus, on the spam email, on the bad website. So they're not building device, they're not doing selling, they're just watching what's happening. And then that's what the subscription service, you need to update all this kind of new things, right? Different than the traditional firewall, you just set it up. So that's where the threat and response team is very, very important. For them, their job also try to discover, so what's the vulnerability in different computer, different OS, different application software. I have to say, today, probably we call what you see in the wild is really the bad things in the field compared to what we discover, still very, very small percentage. A lot of time, when we discover something, we notify the vendor first, make sure they get fixed. Only when sometimes they're too slow or some other things, maybe something we try to find a way to push them, maybe release it to be public, but it's the way is really, the strategy research team, they found a much more kind of an issue than what's appear in the public. And also, the other thing really, there's a lot of we call the honeypot. They do create a lot of things, try to attract some attack, right? So make sure we understand how people attack, and then try to see the way we can protect against the customer.
In continuity, do you consider we have an idea, a conception which is quite popular to say, in order to know how to protect, it's necessary to know how to attack. In that case, what means should be put into research, R&D, research and development in the area of cybersecurity intelligence?
Yes, you do need to understand the attack in order to prevent the attack. On the other side, you also need to predict a little bit what's the future, because once there's certain applications, certain way that when they release, you can see there's certain vulnerability in certain application or certain software, and then there's a certain way people may kind of attack. Also, you can monitor all this kind of certain discussion in the internet, and also try to see all this. I think it's definitely need to understand how the vulnerability and all this kind of thing, and in order to protect the people behind. That's why I feel it's a very, very critical, very important. Have this. We have about 300 people do the research, including here in France. Is really try to make sure you can understand what's the latest change in the space, and to protect the people we call in real time.
There is a very large panel of technologies about to offer or to guarantee or to propose security, cybersecurity. And what types of technology will be essentials, you think, to tomorrow's security, like cryptography, biometric identifications, techniques, data segregation? There are a lot of very large catalog. What will be the technology which has a chance in the future?
I think that's where there's so many security company now, because each one try to address certain point solution. And also there's a certain basic sense, they definitely, certain technology, they can enhance the security, like certain encryption, or certain authentication, or certain like segmentation, or all these kind of things, or kind of manage the traffic, or manage all this based on location, based on people have certain policy, they all can improve and lower the risk. But I have to say, it's all more depend on what's the new application come to the internet. And because, like I said, the internet architecture, when they designed 40 years ago, even using today, and even probably in the next 10 years, everybody treat it as the same as flat. There's no control. Everybody, they trust is all the same level. Also,
for the moment.
All the connection, I say, pretty much all the connection more in the layer 2, layer 3. The switch is more layer 2, routing more layer 3. They don't have much in the higher layer. And also the way they more care connection inside of the way they manage. That's where you need to have a certain technical function to really help in address the security concern. But I think a lot of point solution company will be there because they offer certain application security, certain point solution. But the basic function I feel is just like today when the people travel, the cargo travel, there's a certain way. You look at how they control the border, how they control all this kind of the security. I think eventually, and also somehow the internet traffic maybe will go to similar direction long term.
We talked about technologies, the fact that the nature of the threats. Do you think that in the future, the enterprises, the firms, which have no IT security department included in their organization, the IT security would be managed by kind of a third party that would be responsible for it? And how strategic will be IT become for the enterprises?
Only a certain degree, because today people talk a lot about how the cloud strategy, how the other things. But sometimes when you move to the cloud, or you maybe offer the security to the outside, maybe that's also create another layer of risk, right? So it's a certain degree, and it's depend on what's the need, and also depend on what's the information you try to protect. But they do create quite some value because address some of the security knowledge level beyond some of the IT people. But on the other side, you still need to have the capability in the enterprise in order to really secure the things yourself. Because sometimes whether there's a certain things you do is different than other, or also there's certain company a little bit behind. So that's where make sure the way you can have the device to control not only the firewall kind of VPN connection layer, but also go to the content, go to application, like all GetVars, the ATP, all the span, all the web, all the things, have that capability. I feel is very, very important. Sometimes you may need it right away, but in the case something happens, you better turn it on to give you the extra protection, to give you the extra control. In the normal use, you may not need it. So that's really important to have the extra capability, even extra bandwidth when you try to design the security architecture. In the end, it's really it's more about how much the cost, the things you want to control certain risk. Right? Whether you can limit, like certain, in some customers, they have the compliance, so they need to manage risk in certain level and then try to have the lower cost. In some other customer, they probably have the cost, they try to manage risk as low as possible. It's a different target you try to achieve.
Thanks, Ken, for this roundup. Just before, when we talked before the session, we had a discussion concerning one of the subjects which is in the news now, which is the PRISM and the legislation. We can see the question about borders, the law. Just a last question to say, do you think the people, the firms, enterprises, customers will now take in consideration nationality of their suppliers? Do you think that nationality of firms, it's important, it will be taken in consideration, or that's business first and the capacity to deliver the service?
I think there's always certain government try to involve in some part, but I have to say, 97, 98% of the things is all managed by the business people, and that's where how the internet, all the usage, all the security, even the budget go there, and it's really how to provide the best, the most capable device to help in the business lower the risk. And also, sometimes even call myself the internet janitor. So you need to help them to clean the environment, make sure they feel more comfortable or enable some other things they can do over the internet because the safe environment they have, or the clean, the better environment, enable them to have the additional service. But it's I think long term, I feel internet could create some border there, and there's once the border, the law, certain government may be involved. But I have to say that's really 10 to 20 years away. And right now, the government involved, I think, is still pretty low.
Thank you very much for this conversation. And I do mention that if you, because we will not have the time to have some questions, but if you want to have personal talks with Ken, he is in Monaco for the entire day, and then there is absolutely no difficulty to organize meetings, personal, to have these short conversation, reaction, or some precisions concerning what we discussed this morning. Thanks again, Ken, for this first time in Monaco, and I hope you will be back in less than 10 years now in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.